Hello, everybody, and welcome back. My name is Ivan. I am joined with Lisa today. We are going to do a little bit of a deep dive into a very unusual case that happened in the very cold state of Minnesota. Um, as I mentioned before, my name is Ivan. I will be your host going through this mysterious and scary journey. And with me is the lovely Julissa.
Hey, what's up? My name is Julissa. I'll be joining Ivan today to talk about a very terrifying, spooky incident that happened in a small town in Minnesota. I'm a lover of all things dark, obscure, and mysterious.
She has a huge plush animal, stuffed animal collection.
That I do.
Yeah, something like that. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen with you really quick. Sweet. All right. Do you see a wiki page on your end?
I do.
Awesome. Okay. So this evening we'll be talking about the Val Johnson incident. This is an incident that occurred in Marshall County, Minnesota. The individual that we have involved here is a former deputy sheriff, Val Johnson. It all happened in 1979. So what ended up happening with Val Johnson is that he was on patrol near the city of Warren, Minnesota, um, August 27th, 1979, if I'm not mistaken. And it's really late at night or early in the morning, so it's 2 a.m. As he's driving, he sees a beam of light off in the distance, and he continues to drive towards it. All of a sudden, he notices that this beam of light starts to speed up towards him and actually goes into his vehicle, engulfs it in light, and then Val Johnson is unconscious for a little under an hour or so. And then when he wakes up, he realizes that his watch and the clock in the car are both broken, and that he has some rather severe burns to his eyes. He's noticed some other issues um, with the vehicle itself. And from there, the squad car ended up sideways as well. And so um, the big mystery here is, what did Val Johnson see that night? What struck him or his vehicle? And is it in fact a UFO sighting of some sort? Now, for context, Warren, Minnesota is definitely getting out there. Let me see if I can find it really quick for everybody. Bear with me. My internet is a little bit slow, but all right. So Warren, Minnesota is it looks like, what is that here? The upper northwest of the state of Minnesota. This is a really weird map, man. Anyway, it's all the way up here. And doing some research into the city, I mean, it's pretty small, and I would imagine that in 1979, the population wasn't that high either. So it looks like the population in 2010 was about a little over 1,500. So it is definitely a small town. Doesn't seem like a great place for UFO sightings, but I could always be mistaken. Um, Julissa, what do you think happened?
I am super puzzled by this case. I think it could really be anything. It could be that maybe he's misremembering what happened. It could be something a little bit more perplexing, like a extraterrestrial um being that he saw in the middle of the road that night. It could have been something scientifically explainable, like ball lightning. It could have been maybe some type of government experiment of some sort. I feel like there's so many explanations, and the evidence is just so perplexing because I think that it mentioned in the article, or one of the articles that I was reading about it, that Val Johnson actually had some sort of welder's burns in his eyes. So there had to have been some sort of incredibly bright light that would have injured him that night.
Yeah, for sure. Let's look at Welder's burns really quick. I've looked
What
this up before, so if anyone is sensitive to images of
injuries?
injuries or red eyes or whatnot, feel free to look away for a couple minutes here. So it looks like, let's see here, Welder's burn. A flash burn occurs when you're exposed to bright ultraviolet light. It can be caused by all types of UV lights, but welding torches are the most common source. Interesting. Oofda.
Looks pretty intense.
That's rough. Yeah.
It's not your everyday type of injury, I don't think.
So this is considered a flash burn, a welding burn. So yeah, that's yikes. That's a really intense injury. And then even looking at his vehicle, here's a picture of like what his vehicle ended up looking like. You can see on the windshield, there seems to be a point of impact. It almost looks like it could have been like some sort of ballistic, like a bullet or something that would have
It
gone through
does.
his windshield. What's kind of weird about it is the fact that something clearly penetrated the windshield, but it doesn't look like there's any damage to the inside of the vehicle at all. And it's also kind of scary that Val would have been driving right here, and this looks like it's getting pretty close to where his head would have been.
Yeah. Yeah, like it was aiming for his head almost.
Mhm. And I wonder what speed Val Johnson was driving at, because I'm under the assumption that you start to see a bright light off in the distance. You're a police officer. You're probably going to speed up because maybe you think it's some sort of emergency, like a
All right.
vehicle that is stalled out or something. That's something to consider. I also remember reading that there the antenna of the vehicle was bent at a really weird angle. I'm trying to see if I can find any pictures of this. Bear with me. Val Johnson car. And I can't spell antenna. You might have to take my word for it. I'll continue looking for it. Lisa, maybe you can find me a link.
Sure, I'll get going on that.
Cool. That'd be awesome. So this is an image of the inside of Val Johnson's vehicle. And it's really interesting damage to the windshield. Obviously, in 1979, the construction of these vehicles were different. I'd have to look up to see what model car this is. Forgive me for not being the best when it comes to car models or whatnot, but that's some substantial damage. And the point of impact is, I mean, it's really small. It's really defined. I'm surprised that he didn't end up getting more hurt than the injuries that he suffered. Now, the part that is interesting to me is that he claims to have seen a really bright light inside of the car. And then he went unconscious. Then he had this whole like loss of time situation, something about 14 minutes or so that elapsed, I believe. It was either that he lost consciousness for 14 minutes or it was that the watch on his wrist and the watch in the car were delayed by 14 minutes, which is pretty interesting because in a lot of UFO abduction studies, alien abduction studies, there's always this claim of missing time, which is hard to explain in this case, right? So another thing that's kind of interesting with the actual damage to the vehicle is the fact that his car ended up getting launched. So let me see if I can find the actual distance. So they did find the squad car. It was sideways. I remember reading that the car ended up a few hundred feet back. Basically, it's almost as though the car is all. It's almost like if something smashed into the car and just hit it with enough force that caused the car to just slide all the way back, right? Like a few hundred feet and end up sideways, which is extremely unusual. Normally, if a car smashes into another car, um, at least with modern cars, they'll collapse in on themselves. They'll kind of sandwich in, if that makes sense. And it's a safety measure, but in this case, it's like something he hit something that just caused his vehicle to bounce away. Now, what I think could have happened. So there's like a few theories, right? The first thing that I like to believe, just because I'm a big fan of UFOs and aliens and all that fun stuff, is that perhaps this is a legitimate UFO sighting or interaction with extraterrestrials of some sort. It could also be some sort of government experiment, but we'll go down that route in a second. So if we continue on the UFO path, maybe his vehicle impacted the the force field of whatever this craft would have been in the middle of the road, and that's what caused the car to just bounce off of it. Now we can pretend, right? I'm by no means a UFO spacecraft expert. I'll leave that to the Elon Musks of the world, but I'm assuming that these crafts would probably be running with some sort of uh, energy system that perhaps we can compare to electricity here on Earth. It could be some sort of plasma, some sort of electrical field of some sort, and that could have caused the issues with the watches or with the clocks, and perhaps that's what also bounced the vehicle away. Now, it would have been fun, and I don't know if we can find anyone who would ever want to research this, I suppose, to take a look at the engine of this vehicle the night of, just to see if there was any damage to any of the internals. There's no mention of that in any of the articles that I've researched online. But then I think about it more and I'm like, okay, well, you would think that if you crashed your car or if a UFO crashed into you, the car would end up obliterated, essentially. It's interesting that the car is still intact. There's only damage to the windshield. What if, Lisa, and what do you think of this? What if it was a warning shot coming from the UFO? Like it fired either like a probe, it fired a laser.
Oh, wow.
Something to try and either scare this individual or honestly just to toy with them.
That is a really interesting theory because I mean, yeah, I feel like if it was a UFO and we assume that it was some sort of alien or something like that, it didn't hurt him. I mean, aside from the welder's burns and him going unconscious, it could have done more. You know what I mean? It had a chance to. So it could have been a warning sign, like you're saying. I could definitely see that. It's really crazy to me how far he was launched, given the size of the damage to his vehicle. I don't think that size of damage. I mean, it looks if you just look at it, it looks like it could have been maybe a rock or maybe even a bullet hole, but neither of those things would cause your car to just fly back by hundreds of feet. So it could have just been moving him away from whatever it was as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, here's a picture, an artist's depiction of this UFO encounter. Uh, I think honestly, if we stick with the UFO theory, I don't think that a UFO ran into his vehicle directly. like we said before, it would have just completely wrecked the vehicle.
Right.
I think that maybe this object could have flown past the vehicle, caught Val Johnson in its electrical field, magnetic field, or whatever energy source that they're using to enable these vessels to maneuver through time and space, essentially. And this is the result of it. So maybe there was even, when you take two magnets and they're opposite magnets, opposite sides, and you try to push them together, they repel. So maybe it's a situation like that where this vehicle is primarily metal, got pushed to the side by this specific object. Maybe even the speed of the object played a factor into this as well. The part that I find interesting is the fact that Val Johnson claims that the cabin of the vehicle that he was in lit up all of a sudden. There's a bright light, and that's when he passed out. So maybe something came into the car, potentially. I mean, that's another thing, right? Like, what if,
Right.
or hear me out on this one. This one's going to be weird. What if UFOs, as we think, like maybe we're wrong about the UFOs. We always think that they're these giant flying saucers. What if there's something very, very tiny?
Right. Yeah. Maybe the light was the UFO.
Exactly.
We don't know. It could be something that our minds can barely even begin to grasp.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that these extraterrestrials, these UFOs, I mean, I'm calling them ETs, but for all we know, like, they could be us. They could be human beings
Right.
in a different dimension. Who's to say that these vehicles don't run in between dimensions? You know what I mean? So like a certain amount of its makeup exists in essentially our realm, but it's either moving through space through wormholes of some sort, or it's doing something beyond anyone's comprehension on Earth, where it's appearing here, but it's not fully here. And perhaps the shape can be manipulated as well, so that these vehicles are more covert. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know that there's some physicists that believe, and they have some sort of mathematical proof that there's other dimensions and things like that. I'm no expert, as you said, but I know I've heard that in some places.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, now we're gonna kind of switch gears into a different theory that I have. This is kind of a funner one. Yeah, maybe it's not. I mean, UFOs are always fun, but this one is taking a different approach, I guess. So, I'm talking about this UFO potentially being a lot smaller in size, right? What if instead of this being an extraterrestrial encounter, what if this was an encounter with a ghost? Now, hear me out. Let me pull up an image here of what I'm talking about. Okay, so none of these are really sure what I want. Hold on. Okay, so this isn't the greatest photo either, but there have been a lot of encounters with ghosts, situations where there's haunted houses, graveyards, scary places, right? Like you think of that like poltergeist, haunting kind of archetype, all the movies that have been made. So that runs through your mind, right? So alongside the ghosts themselves, there have also been claims of these orbs that have been caught on camera. Typically, the naked human eye can't see them. This is typically just found, like digitally anyway. And these orbs are closely associated with these hauntings, so with the presence of ghosts. Now, what if Val Johnson on that day ran into a spirit that was essentially crossing the road, or there was some sort of um, perhaps cult activity in the area? I mean, this is out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Right.
This is like
Yeah.
farms and everything. Like this is out there, and it is end of summer. I mean, it's not like on a specific like occultic date. I guess now I'm looking at it, but now I'm thinking about it. But who's to say that there wasn't something at work there, and
Yeah.
maybe that's I mean, maybe that's what he hit.
Yeah. I mean, isn't there a well, this might be a discussion for another day, but isn't
Sure.
there a town in Minnesota that a lot of people seem to agree that it may or may not be a cult?
Yeah, that
Might
is.
not be near there, but
Well, it's Jackson Meadows. We can definitely talk about Jackson Meadows. That's another interesting spot in Minnesota. I've actually been to it a couple times. It's it's that we'll let's look into in the next episode. But yeah, I mean, maybe something was going on there. You know, I wouldn't be surprised, to be totally honest. But that to me kind of explains like the bright light in the vehicle and him not being able to remember all these things. But then I've never heard, and this would also be fun to research. I mean, I've never heard of a ghost actually causing an entire car to move out of the way. You know
right,
what I
I
mean?
was
Like,
gonna say that too. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, ghosts. I mean, we've heard of angry, vicious ghosts, but man, that's pretty intense to basically whip a car back hundreds of feet.
exactly. I mean, this is making me think of Ghostbusters at this point. And because even in the latest Ghostbuster movie, there was a ghost that was eating metal. Do you remember that?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I do remember that.
That
Yeah.
was like eating metal, and then it was shooting out these projectiles and stuff at the kids. So who knows? I mean, maybe these spirits or ghosts, demons, whatever you want to call them, like maybe they can interact with the physical world in more ways than what we could imagine. I know that in the occult anyway, like there are certain days of the year where supposedly the spiritual veil between, our physical realm and the realm of the dead essentially is super thin. So you have a lot of cults and religions that do different practices on that day because it's supposed to be easier to communicate with the other side and to bring the other side back here. So maybe something was going on that day. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the day again? It was like August
It was August.
27th, maybe?
It was August
27th, yes.
27. Yeah. Is it 1979?
Yes.
I don't know. You can look at the horoscope. Is any
Maybe Mercury was in Gatorade or something like that.
in
Who knows?
Gatorade? Let's see here. 239th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar. 126 days for me until the end of the year. Okay, we're not going to start digging into numerology. I'm going to be here all day. It's a lot of fun to look into that kind of stuff. But yeah, let's say that the date isn't significant. It's still, I mean, this is still bizarre that it all happened. Um, I have one more theory on what could have happened. Mind you, I'm rooting for the aliens, man. For me, it's ET or nothing, like straight up. But another thing that it could have been is ball lightning, which is a really, really, really weird phenomenon that can, in theory, happen. Let me see if I can pull up just some info on what ball lightning is. So it's an unexplained phenomenon described as luminescent spherical objects that vary from pea size to several meters in diameter, usually associated with thunderstorms. Um, it's reported to last considerably longer than the split-second flash of a lightning bolt. 19th century reports describe balls that eventually explode and leave behind an odor of sulfur. Well, that's weird and
Oh,
scary.
interesting.
Let's see. An optical spectrum of what appears to have been a ball lightning event was published in January 2014 and included a video at high frame rate. Laboratory experiments have produced effects that are visually similar, but how those relate to the supposed phenomenon remain unclear. So it looks like there's a lot of hypotheses as to like what this could be, but the scientific data on ball lightning remains scarce. Okay. So it could be something natural potentially.
That's super interesting. I wonder, yeah, I wonder if he smelled anything odd at the scene, because that, like, that smell of sulfur, you definitely can, it's very strong. It's not something that you can miss.
Yeah, for sure. This is funny. Look, there's a ball lightning magic card.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
awesome.
I'm distracted. Yeah, I mean, definitely, if scientists are claiming that there's a sulfur-like smell after an incident of ball lightning, I have a feeling he would have remembered that, right? Like it's something that
Yeah, yeah.
he would have mentioned in the early on in the reports. I know for a fact that like you have your olfactory bulbs and all that that is closely associated to the memory portion of your brain. So there would be some sort of connection. I wonder if he did smell anything weird.
Yeah, or I mean, thinking about that too, like I think you and I have talked about this before. It'd be interesting to see what the weather conditions were like around that time. I don't know. I mean, it seems from the images that we're looking at that it would happen under the conditions of a thunderstorm or something similar like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That could be something interesting to research as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can play this video quick. Get out of here. I don't know how much of this video I can actually play without getting in trouble, but here is the vehicle itself. Oh, there we go. So there's the antenna. This is what I was talking about. That's weird. That's super strange to me.
Bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very bizarre. I mean, it's very angled.
but it's angled in a, well, no. I'm trying to think here, like, okay, let's say a rock or something hits the car, hits the antenna, right? I guess it all depends on the size of the rock and the velocity it's coming in at, because you would think that, okay, you have an antenna that's standing, straight. It's vertical here. So if a rock hits it, would it make sense for the antenna to bend forward, or would it just distort, or would it just completely knock it over?
That's a good question, and I've never been a science gal much myself. I mean, I admire it, but I don't know.
Yeah,
That's so interesting. I think that it would depend also on the material that they use for the antenna. How malleable is it? I don't think they would
sure.
use something super malleable because it's supposed to stay upright.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really odd.
Here's some footage of the area in question where this happened. As you can see, like there's nothing here. At least in 1979, like this whole area was, look at that haircut. This whole area was nothing but farmland. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing here. I don't think it's gonna give us anything else. There are a few articles that we were looking at. Okay, so you're gonna pivot and talk about Val Johnson himself a little bit. Now, I know from what I've read and what I've heard, because other people have explored this topic before, is that Val Johnson did not have a good time after this incident. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people in his personal life uh, essentially like disavowed him completely and did not believe anything that he said. A lot of people claim that this was some sort of elaborate hoax, that it didn't happen, that he set everything up. Now, let's think of motive, right? To me, it doesn't make any sense as to why Val would actually try to fake this incident, because he didn't seek any fame after it happened.
Right. I feel the same way. I mean, I don't see any real motive. I mean, he's a small town cop. He's just driving around at night and then he sustains all these injuries. I mean, I don't think anybody would go so far as to give themselves an injury to go with a bizarre story. And he also, I know that now he's a recluse and he doesn't talk about the incident at all. So I would think that if he was just making it up to get attention or fame or whatever, that he would be talking about it forever and capitalize on that when it was really popular. There was a point in time where a lot of people around the country were talking about it, but yeah, I don't see a motive there, and I don't see actions that say to me he just made it up for clout.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because think about it, there have been so many fake incidents that have happened, and just think about like what our culture, how our culture is at the moment, right? Like, this is not gonna become a critique of society, of social media, of anything at all, but people will do silly things, even bad things, right? And they become famous off of it, and they'll just completely milk that cow for all it's worth.
Right, right.
So let's say that in this case, Val Johnson, like he hit a deer or something. My man could have written a New York Times bestseller book and talked about how he saw, like little green aliens, or he saw gremlins from outer space.
Right.
He saw some weird things. I don't know, just like tiny people. I don't know, right? Like,
Anything
uh,
could be anything.
yeah, but he could have made some serious dough out of it, but
Right.
he became a recluse. He doesn't like to talk about it. All the articles that I looked up, I mean, he doesn't do interviews. I think he's still in the Midwest somewhere. It gave some silly news network tried to reach out to him a few years ago, and they like borderline doxed the guy. So I don't really want to like give out too many personal details of who he is, But heck, if I was in that situation, I would definitely try to milk it for what it's worth. I'd try to make some money.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of people would.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I've read articles and people have asked him, what do you think it was? What do you think it was, a UFO? Do you think it was this or that? And he basically just says that is unexplainable. It
Yep.
happened that night. I try not to think about it. It's in the past. He doesn't even think that it was a UFO. He just simply does not know, and he doesn't even theorize, which I think is super interesting too.
Yeah. I think also looking through his Wikipedia, which I understand is not gospel by any means, it's not the greatest source of truth. This is, after all, a paranormal podcast, so don't claim to be a scholar. I have barely a 2-year degree in anything. So it's just an area of interest for me, okay, guys? So don't come after me, or do, I don't know, do whatever you guys want in the comments, but keep it nice. Val Johnson, supposedly denied, he didn't deny, but he refused to have a lie detector polygraph test, whatever that thing is called. Um, yeah, he refused to take a polygraph test because Val believed that it would only serve to satisfy people's morbid curiosity. That's also really weird too. But like we've been saying, he does the polygraph test, it comes out true. Because he doesn't necessarily, the questions aren't going to be like, Val Johnson, did you see little green men that day?
Exactly.
Did you see like floating squid monsters that day? Like whatever Lovecraftian creature was out on that night. No, it's gonna be questions like Val Johnson, like, did this happen? Did
And
you
it did.
sorry, what was that?
And it did. I really do believe him. I think that he's telling the truth. I don't see a motive. And yeah, as you're saying, it will probably come out consistent with what he's claiming. And there's also a reason why polygraph tests aren't used in court. They don't really validate or invalidate anything for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I guess the polygraph test at this point is just irrelevant, but this is kind of interesting looking at this article.
Yeah.
When he called dispatch for help on that night, he said that something had attacked his car, that it wasn't a vehicle, that he didn't know what the hell it was. So he was definitely in some state of shock. That's terrifying. I would never want to be in a situation like that where I'm all alone, middle of the night, I'm probably pretty tired, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like, I see a bright light and I am knocked out. Because had there been more cars that night, anyone could have crashed into them. Trust me, here in Minnesota, once you get out in away from the Twin Cities, more into like farming areas and whatnot, those back roads, man, there is no lights. There
Yeah.
are no street lights. There's nothing out there. It is
It's pitch black.
Yeah, it's borderline pitch black. You can see the stars clear. It's gorgeous. I would suggest getting out there. It's awesome for anyone who likes that kind of stuff. But I also understand that being stuck out there in the middle of the night like that would be terrifying. And I'm assuming that his vehicle, it lost power basically, right? Like if there was some sort of electrical interference, I would guess that the car battery died, which would then kill all the electricity in the car. So now you are sitting horizontal on the road, pitch black,
Unconscious.
unconscious. That super vulnerable position, man. Like, the one thing in this case is at least he was still in his car.
Right.
Because imagine if he would have been ejected from the vehicle. He probably would have passed away. Like, let's
Yeah.
be real.
For sure.
Yeah. So electrical force, UFOs. I'm still saying he smashed into a UFO, man. That's what I want to believe.
I was kind of hoping for gremlins. No, but
Yeah.
I think that yeah, that whole scenario, it terrifies me. I visited a city really close to Marshall County, which is where it happened, and I meant to visit the museum, but it just so happened that it was closed when I was around the area. But
Sure.
yeah, it's pitch black. You're essentially you're in the void. There's no light, there's no nothing. You see the sky, you can barely see the road. Hopefully you have strong headlights. So I couldn't imagine being in his position that night in the middle of the night. He's on his shift. Maybe he's just getting onto his shift, or maybe he's in the middle of the shift, but it's in the night, so he's probably exhausted. And to have that whole experience, I would be in total shock. I would be in total shock.
Yeah, definitely. Or do you think that maybe this is a stretch, man? I just want to believe in the aliens, to be honest. But hey, it's late 70s, early 80s. It's disco fever, you know what I mean? You're coming off of the whole like hippie movement,
Right.
psychedelics and whatnot. Who's to say, and I'm not trying to slander him, this is just an idea being tossed out into the void, right? Maybe, some hallucinogenic whatevers played a factor into this, but that still doesn't make any sense because, yeah, I mean, he could have claimed, like, oh, I saw a light, but at that point, what would he have hit?
Right.
He's a police officer. Like,
Yeah.
it's not to say this wouldn't be the first time that something like that would happen with an officer or with any human being at this point, but the the damages are weird to the vehicle.
Right.
Injuries he sustained are weird. But
Mm-hmm.
here's the part that I find the weirdest is the loss of time. Like, they keep talking about how, let's see here, something attacked his car. Goodness, I can't find it in this article. Maybe I go back here. Okay, so this is what's weird. So he was unconscious for 39 minutes. When he woke up, he realized that his wristwatch and the vehicle's clock had stopped for 14 minutes. So I guess the power in the vehicle didn't completely go out if the clock's still working. So, and Lisa, like, correct me if I'm misunderstanding this, but is the idea that his wristwatch stopped at some point for about 14 minutes? Would it have been that the clocks were behind by 14 minutes? Please, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah. Just thinking.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure that you didn't get
Sometimes, sometimes it takes the brain a couple minutes to process.
Yeah, I know. We gotta start doing these things earlier. I always get inspired at midnight. That's what I'm assuming is that, I mean, his clocks just stopped working.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so bizarre because it all happened at the same time is what he says. But then, I mean, we have to remember too that he's a trained police officer, and so I have to assume that there's some type of curriculum in there that includes how to remember and observe and basically be an eyewitness to things. So
Sure.
and I mean, he could be lying. I mean, for all we know, he could be lying, as you're saying. I mean, it's just a theory. He could have had some sort of something in his coffee, we don't know. But again, what's the motive? I mean, he could have said anything else as an excuse for what happened. So
Yeah. This
it's
is,
really hard to find a narrative that makes sense aside from UFO.
yeah. This is interesting. Looking at what's written here. So it looks like Air Force, Federal Aviation Agency, they confirmed that there are no aircraft scheduled to fly, and none were
Oh,
reported in the area in the early hours of August 27th.
interesting.
Looks like the Center for UFO Studies. Man, I want to make friends over there. Evanston, Illinois, conducted some magnetic testing on the car. There were no definitive results. Not like those results would have been given out to the public. Cough, cough. In November, a metal engineer from Honeywell visited the sheriff's office to perform his own tests, concluded that an electrical force or thing had caused the damage. So he even got Honeywell looking into this.
Wow.
See, that's the part that I find interesting, is that people took interest in this, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I suppose that, like, that could be really intimidating. You have a lot of people that are going to be super excited to either try and find proof of UFOs in this situation to reinforce their beliefs or theories, or B, you're going to have folks who are super excited to call you out as a fraud. You know what I mean? Because you got people on both sides. You got people that are believers. You got people that are not believers or haters or
Right.
whatever we like to call them nowadays. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so that rules out this being an incident with some sort of plane or something that fell out of the sky potentially. Um, an electrical force or thing had caused the damage. That's fascinating. And it does look like he was also on Good Morning America at some point. But he
Yeah,
does
I'm in the ball lightning camp. I really do think it could have been ball lightning.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, for me the weirdest thing, I know for you the weirdest thing was the time loss.
Yeah.
I think for me it was the welder's burn. Because how in the world do you get welder's burn in the middle of the road in
Mhm.
rural Minnesota at night? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I guess if you like crashed your car or something, or like someone, I don't know, shot a gun off like right in your face. Yeah, that's so weird. A flare, maybe? A flare could potentially do that. You know, like I'm referring to a flare is like, you know, like a road flare, like those like giant red rods.
But I would think that for it to cause a burn into your eyes, it would have to be really, really close to your face.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I mean, as we mentioned before, like we could say, okay, maybe it was a flare, but it would have had to have gone into his vehicle,
Yep.
go near his eyes, but then cause no damage to inside the vehicle or other damage to him. No burns on him, no
Sure.
burns inside the vehicle. So it's so perplexing to me.
Yeah. No, it's super weird. And yeah, even his wife spoke to the Minneapolis Star in September. I wonder if that's still a news network or like the Star Tribune or whatever, right? Or some sort of publication here in the Twin Cities. But that the incident completely disrupted our family organization. We have a baby and that takes time. Okay, interesting. We have one to get off to school and the phone keeps ringing. So people were really interested in this. And who knows? I mean, maybe his family got a phone call from Uncle Sam, not gonna name, you know, the acronyms that we all know of, but they're 3-letter acronyms. Maybe someone, you know, hit him up and put a little bit of the fear of God in them and said, hey, you know, this never happened. They either paid him off, or maybe there was something more nefarious there, or maybe nothing happened. Maybe they just got sick of it. You know what I mean? Not everyone likes the fame.
Yeah.
We can't all be Kanye. We can't all be Kanye. We can't all be Yeezus as much as I wish I could be. But yeah, it looks like, let's see, 2019, Warren residents celebrated the 40th anniversary of the deputy's encounter with the public event featuring live music, an alien costume contest,
Oh,
and a dramatic reenactment of Johnson's radio call. Wow.
I'm really sad we missed that.
Yeah, me too. Wow, it's really cool, man. I can find some photos of it. I bet that alien costume contest was awesome. So it looks like the Marshall County Historical Society in Warren preserves documentation of the incident as well. Oh, they actually have his car. Johnson's squad car is there. Damaged windshield, hood, lights, and antenna remain as they appeared in 1979. And it looks like more visitors come to his institution to see the vehicle itself than any other artifact. And they dubbed it the UFO car. So it's still there. I think that would be a really fun trip. I would recommend it to anyone
Yeah.
that likes this kind of stuff.
Road trip.
Yeah. Minnesota is harsh during the winters, so definitely if you come out this way, come in the spring, come in the late spring, summer, because spring here is weird, man. Like, don't come in here March, maybe late April through September. I don't know. Halloween's kind of lit here too, though. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I love fall here.
Yeah,
I think fall's awesome.
the fall here is gorgeous, but yeah, we should check it out. Maybe it was ball lightning. Maybe it was a UFO. I I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it a real rating. We should call it the rating system. I think on a scale of like 1 to 10, the scale, scale of 1 to 10 of how likely, like, is this authentic or not? An
Yeah.
authenticity scale. There we go. 1 through 10, due to the amount of evidence, due to the theories, due to my extreme bias towards the supernatural.
Right.
I think we're probably sitting at a solid like 7.5, 7.5.
7.5. Wow. I was gonna say for my rating,
Yeah.
I think that I would give it maybe a 5 aliens out of 10 aliens for
5 aliens out
me.
of 10 aliens.
Yeah, I think so. I just think it's I really do think ball lightning could be a good explanation. But who knows? Who knows? We will never know. Not
Yeah.
even Val Johnson knows.
Or maybe he does. He just doesn't want to say anything.
Dun dun dun.
I know. That's like a big twist, right? Hey, honestly, like, you give me enough money or you give me enough threats, and I could definitely forget certain details of certain things that I've gone through, or claim, that it never happened. Just saying, people can be bought off, or scared off, I guess. The ball lightning theory is interesting, for sure. I think that if this is an incident of ball lightning, which I'm not saying that it's not, Val Johnson is either the luckiest, or he's simultaneously the luckiest and unluckiest individual on the face of the planet.
That
Because
is
ball
true.
lightning is so difficult to observe, to see. It's like one in who knows how many billion chances of it actually ever happening.
Right.
It's more of a theory than a fact.
Right.
Maybe it happened, but then that leads me down the rabbit hole. And I know that we're kind of running out of time, but it leads me down the rabbit hole of what's in the earth in Warren, Minnesota. Like, what's in the water, right? To cause ball lightning. You know what I mean? Like, there's so
Right.
many things to explore. They're like, yeah, what was the weather like
Mm-hmm.
2 a.m. in the morning? What's that look like? Because the temperature is going to be cooler. You don't have sun most of the time. You don't have sun at 2 a.m. here in Minnesota. Um, there's that one time, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. But it's like all these stars aligned, or UFOs aligned for Val. And I genuinely, like, it's a fascinating story. A part of me really feels it for the guy, because I couldn't imagine going through something like this. I'm assuming that it would be traumatic. It would be scary. Um, who knows what kind of psychological effects this had on his life in the long run, because it looks like it impacted his family as well. And if that were the case, if I had a family and they were being impacted in a negative way by something that I claimed happened, I would probably go hush hush about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't blame anyone, but yeah, I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10 aliens. I think that in no UFO incident, we're never gonna hit a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
There's never gonna be enough proof until, like, there's legit an alien coming down from the sky. You know what I mean? Like UFO landing at the White House or something. But um, I think there's just enough mystery. There's enough weirdness here. The fact that the vehicle sustained the damage it sustained, the fact that Val Johnson had the burns that he had, the injuries that he had, the loss of time can't be explained either. There was for sure something beyond our comprehension, because ball lightning too, like you said, like I've been hammering on, that's something that's beyond our human understanding. So
Right. Yeah.
something
And
to
that
talk about.
that in and of itself is terrifying too. I mean, you talked a little bit about the trauma that he must have gone through and all of that. I mean, for me, I personally just when things happen to me that are unexplainable, I just go crazy thinking about it over and over again. And I couldn't imagine him just even years later, probably still thinking, what was that? What
Yep.
could that have been? Was it nefarious? Was it just by chance? Was I just the most unlucky guy in the world at that time?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I bet it did a number on him for real.
Yeah, no, it'd be super scary. Gosh, look at these colors. It's just horrible, man. This is genuinely kind of hard to read. Yeah, no, it's not good. I hope he's doing good. I hope in the middle of all this craziness past couple of years that he's safe, that his family is good. I wish them the absolute best. Um, yeah, there could have been trauma. I'll leave it with this. Look, in conclusion, it would be interesting, not that it would happen or that it would be ethical, but it would be interesting to maybe try and do some hypnosis, some sort of psychological therapy to try and tap into his subconscious just to see if in those 14 minutes he saw something. Because who's to say that like he didn't get abducted, right? Like if we're talking about like interdimensional time traveling, you know, super advanced, super like technologically advanced race, creatures, spirit beings, whatever they are, you know, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there are things that like he consciously doesn't remember. Their thoughts, memories, things are imprinted in his mind. And then also it would be really interesting to talk with him just to see if he had any other supernatural or paranormal experiences beyond this incident. Because normally, like when people get abducted or when they have encounters like this, there's a whole like I think the right word here, like a whole plethora of different things that happen, you know. Um, yeah, it would definitely be fun to explore. But those are my concluding thoughts. Lisa, what do you think? Do you have anything that you want to tell the audience right now?
Well, I think for me, my final concluding thought would be anyone from Honeywell, any electrician or engineer or anything that wants to test the car. I think that would be awesome because the article that said the test showed that the car was hit by some sort of electrical force.
Yep.
I think that was really interesting, and I would have liked to have heard more about that particular test and for somebody to do a test nowadays. I think that would be a very interesting thing to follow up with. I
Yep.
also would love to see the weather of that night because I'm just a ball lightning stan. I just want to believe it was ball lightning. But I'm also open to other theories. And I mean, I think that this is one of the most interesting cases that I've heard of. I also really hope that Val Johnson and his family are doing well. And yeah, I had a great time talking with you about this. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. It was a treat. Always a pleasure to have you on these shows, and yeah, we should keep diving deeper into the world of the paranormal, supernatural, whatever, you know. And it's always fun to explore and theorize all these things. Of course, they're all theories. You know what I mean? And Yeah, I'm just going by what I can find online, and hey, it's a fun thing to do for sure. One last thing that I'll reading this article right now. No, we're about to sign off here, but looks like someone from Ford investigated the windshield fractures. And this is something
Oh,
that I was thinking, that the windshield fractures, they're weird.
yeah.
And it looks like after several days of reflection on the crack patterns and apparent sequence of fractures, they still have no explanation for what seems to be inward and outward forces acting almost simultaneously. I can only conclude that all cracks were from mechanical forces of unknown origin. In other words, you hit something, but it doesn't make sense that there are both uh, inward and outward forces. So something happened there. There was like a change of pressure inside of the vehicle potentially. I mean, it's not airtight. Like it's not a plane,
Mhm.
right? Um, yeah, who knows? Uh, yeah, we'll leave it be. I hope Val Johnson's doing good. Shout out to Warren, Minnesota, and your alien costume contest. I hope it was a blast in 2019. I'm glad it happened in 2019, not 2020. We all know why. But yeah, let's sign off here. My name is Ivan, and I was joined today by the lovely Julissa. We're planning on continuing the series, exploring everything that is otherworldly and bizarre. If you all have any suggestions or any ideas on topics to explore or ways that we can improve the show or anything, hey, hit us up. If you want to be a guest here, hit me up as well. Love to chat with you. Um, Maybe we should start making some socials too, huh? I don't have any socials to plug in. Do you have anything to plug in, Kulisa?
Nothing for me to plug at the moment, but
Nothing to plug. You got
would
you do art, right?
oh, that's right. Yeah, I do. I am a painter and I quite love painting the night sky. So if you're interested in that, follow me at artgram on Twitter, or Pax Paints on Facebook, also artgram on Instagram.
Awesome. Yeah, her artwork is fantastic, guys. Check it out. Um, Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, leave a like, wherever this is gonna be posted everywhere. So let me know what you think. I appreciate everybody. Stay spooky out there, stay safe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.